Good morning. Good morning. Happy Mother's Day to you all. Let's see who's going to join us this morning. On this May 10th, 2020, good morning. It's good to see you all joining us on this Mother's Day. We're excited about this day, excited about what the Lord is doing and what He's going to do. And I'm just excited to have you all on with us this morning. So come on, all you moms and children of moms. Come on. It's good to see you today. Every one of you excited about today. I want to remind you as you're coming on that there is an electronic Connect card where you can fill out this Connect card and communicate with us through the Connect card. Just fill out the information. Matter of fact, you can do that most any time during the week that you want to do. Yesterday, I got a Connect card in from someone who asked for prayer. So the Connect cards are a good place for you to be able to ask for prayer, and our prayer team will begin praying with you about the needs. Also, it just gives us a record of letting us know that you're here and you're able to communicate with us on there. So don't forget the Connect cards. Also, if you want to give online, normally this is about the time we would take the offering. If you want to give online, Loki's sharing that information on there with you where you can do that as well. And also we have an electronic bulletin that you can fill out or read rather, the electronic bulletin, and Loki will be sharing all that information with you. Good morning, all of you, and happy Mother's Day. Excited about this day. We had some other plans that we were going to go with today, but some technicalities prevented that. So this morning, it's you and me and the rest of us. So we're excited about today and what the Lord is going to do. So I hope that each of you are enjoying the day already. And we'll tell you this later, but also now, if your mother is living, then make sure that you do everything you can to communicate to her today your love for her, and let her know that you want her to have a happy Mother's Day. If she's not, perhaps she's dancing on the streets of gold like my mom, so we can have sweet memories of her. But not only her, and we'll talk more about this in a moment, but also all of the women in your life that have played a positive role in your life. Let them know Happy Mother's Day. They're not your mother, but let them just say Happy Mother's Day to them, okay? All right. It is the second Sunday of May, and this Sunday every year is celebrated as Mother's Day, the second Sunday of May. The founder of this day, Miss Anna Jarvis, was a teacher of a primary department class at St. Andrew Methodist Church in Grafton, West Virginia. And her mom had also taught the class before she taught it, and her mom had died. So on May the 12th of 1907, Miss Jarvis passed out carnations to the class in honor of her mother. And that is how Mother's Day was born. And it took several years and several things to come together to fall into place to actually have it a holiday. So you can thank Miss Ann Jarvis for that today. And even though she was doing that in memory of her mom. Mother's Day has always been a special day for me because I loved my mom so much, and she had such a great impact on my life. But it's an appropriate occasion to reflect on some of the great mothers that have had impacts on our lives. Every one of you are here today because you had a great mother, and for one reason, if this is the only one, is that she let you live, right? So we are honored just to have known our mothers. And I'm sure in your eyes, your mom was the greatest, but actually it was mine. My mom was the best. And I think all of us should feel that way about our mom. I think that it doesn't mean that your mom was perfect, but still in our eyes, our moms could do no wrong. I had a great mother who prayed for me and who helped me get to where I am today. And there was also, though, a grandmother who prayed for me, numerous aunts. I woke up this morning very early and I laid there just thinking about those ladies that had such an impact on my life as I was a child, and my aunts. And there's no way I could name them all, but I remember Aunt Nell, who was a Sunday school teacher of mine. I remember well some of the classes that she taught and some of the books that she brought in for us to read. I remember that. I remember Aunt Diane singing in the church that I grew up in. I remember those days well. And I've seen a lot of pictures of my aunts on Facebook this weekend, and many of them have gone on. But it's brought back a bunch of memories. But not only was my mom praying for me, my grandmother was praying for me, my aunts were praying for me. There were many women in our church, in the churches that my dad pastored, that we went to from city to city, that played an important role in my life in helping me get to where I am today spiritually. And I think a lot of those ladies, and men too, but today's Mother's Day, we're honoring the ladies. And I just want us today to spend a few moments thinking about the impact that godly women have had on our lives. And I think if you would pause for just a little while today, you could list many of the ladies that has had an impact on your life. So I want to ask you something. We remember the Old Testament story about Samuel. Samuel was the guy, you remember Samuel? Samuel was the guy that God was calling him. He was there to serve Eli, and at night he was in the bed trying to sleep, and God kept calling Samuel, and Samuel did not know the voice of God, and he got up and ran to Eli's place and said, did you call me? And that was such a heart of a servant. But Eli said, I haven't called you, and you know the rundown there. But eventually Eli realized that this was God calling him. And Eli told Samuel to go back, and when you hear that voice again, say to him, speak, because your servant is listening. Samuel went back, and when he went back, God called Samuel. Samuel said, Lord, speak, for your servant is listening. And from that moment, God began to work in and through Samuel's life, and we find him being the one who anointed the very first king of Israel. We find him being the one that anointed David as king of Israel. And you go reading those Old Testament books, 1st, 2nd Samuel, you'll find some powerful things about this man Samuel. But how did he get to that part? How did he get there? How did Samuel get his start as a great man of God? First of all, his mother prayed for him. And I want you to go along with me on this morning. And we're focusing on moms, but there are also adoptive moms that have prayed for us. And as I mentioned earlier, grandmothers, aunts, sisters, and the church I grew up in many years ago, every woman in the church was a sister, right? And all of the men were brothers. And we called everybody sister and every man brother. And that was just the way it was. But there were many sisters who prayed for us. So Samuel's mom prayed for him. In the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 1 and verse 27, she says, "For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition that I made to him. For this child I prayed." How many women has prayed for you? And you begin with your mom, most likely, your grandmother, your aunts, Sunday school teachers, ladies in the church that you grew up in, and men, your wife has prayed for you. We look at these godly women. I believe that now we need to have more godly women than ever before praying for me, for us men, for children, but for this nation. And there's something about the prayer of a woman who has sold out to God and who loves God dearly. There's something about the prayer of the woman that I believe can change a man's heart, can change a child, can change a nation. I believe that with all my heart. I remember my grandmother telling me years ago, the little church in Yarbo, Alabama, where our home church is, I remember grandmother telling us that many years ago there was a pastor that came in to pastor that church, and there were only two or three ladies that were regular in the church. And the pastor called for a prayer meeting, and those three ladies, the pastor and his wife, were there praying and interceding before God. And from that group of prayer meetings, from that group of people praying, God built a church there. And today that church is sitting on Highway 17 right there in Yarbo, Alabama. And I believe with all of my heart that it's there today because somebody came together and prayed many, many years ago, even before I was born. And the majority of those were women praying. Samuel's mother prayed for him, and it was there where he got his start. She said, "For this child I have prayed." Listen, moms, ladies, and if you're not a mom today, adopt you a child. You don't have to go do it legally, but adopt you a child spiritually and begin praying for that child. And it may be the meanest child in the classroom. It may be the meanest child on the block. It might be the one that everyone else has given up on, everyone else is frustrated with and tired of. But if you begin praying for that child, who knows what may happen in that child's life. And we're going to talk about that more in just a moment. But spend time praying for those children that are surrounding you. And it's easy for us today to talk about how that all of the children in the world are going to hell in a handbasket because of all of the things that they're doing and all of the things that they're getting involved with. Why don't we just back up and pray for those children? If there is no mother there praying for them, nor a grandmother praying for them, then mom, ladies, that God has touched your heart in life, why don't you let that child be your responsibility that you take on to hold them up spiritually? I'm not saying that you have to feed them and tend to them and take care of them, but every day of their life, hold their name up before the throne of God. Who knows the impact that it will have on their life? Someone prayed for you, right? Someone prayed for you. What if we have children out here today no one is praying for? Think about that. She said, "For this child I have prayed." The second thing she also did, she dressed him for church services, even though today what we're dressing in is probably pajamas. Those of you I cannot see, but you're probably dressing in pajamas, and your children probably has pajamas, and that's okay. We will come back together, right? We will come back together one day. But I remember my mom dressing us for church, even as young children. I remember Dad pastored a church in Progress, the Progress community in Wayne County, and I remember Mom had dressed us for church one Sunday evening. and it had rained, and we were standing out near the drive, near the ditch, and I remember that I got a little too close to the edge and fell in that red muddy water in my church clothes, and Mom had to start all over. And I remember the frustration. That's what I remember most, her frustration in this. But she dressed him for church service. Read this with me, 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18 and 19. As Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy clothed with a linen ephod, his mother used to make for him a little robe and take it to him each year when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifices. She dressed him. The impact that she had on her son in dressing him. Not only did she pray for him, she also dressed him. The next thing, the child was young when she took him to the house of the Lord. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 24, and when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, a skin of wine, and she brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh, and the child was young. I don't know if it was because I was a preacher's kid, but and it could have possibly been, but I remember being in church all my life. As a matter of fact, and I'm bringing back a lot of memories now, and if you'll do the same thing thinking about your mom, you probably will too, but I remember being just a tot standing on the pew in a little church called Double Branch Church in around Frankville, Alabama, I think it was. Double Branch. I remember standing in the pew in that old church. And that church has been torn down, but I remember going to that church regularly, and then the church at Yarbo, and I remember it so well as a little kid going and standing on the pew, and when people talk about they teethed on the pews of the church, that was me, because Mom and Dad always took me to church very young. When I was just a child, they took me to church, and it was always, and you know what, I was actually thinking this week that there was, and some of you've heard me tell this, there was a time in my life about 16 years ago that I was so distraught, I made up my mind that I was going to quit church. And some of you that don't know the story probably have a hard time understanding this, but we'll tell you more about that later. But there was a time that I was going to quit church completely. And then after 2 weeks, I was like, I can't do that. That's not me. I've always been in church, and it was such a part of me that I found another congregation and began going to another church because I was supposed to have been in church. And I was thinking this week that I have missed church more over the past 2 months than I have ever missed in all of my life collectively. That doesn't make me a saint, but Mom and Dad brought me up in church, and Mom was determined for me to be in church every time the doors were open. We were even at baby showers, okay? Every time the door was open, we were there. And that's how I was brought up. Listen, why don't you do your children like this, or your grandchildren? And let me say this. Right now, our church is centered around a camera and you watching on a screen, regardless of how small or how big it is. This is our church, but it will not be this forever. I'm still getting phone calls wanting to know when we're going to open church, and I promise you, it's going to be soon, very soon. Hold on, all right? But keep praying. But we must realize the importance of having our children in church. And this was Hannah. She gave Samuel to God. Literally. She gave Samuel to God. And that's why he was at Eli's place when God called him. Because she had given him to God. Then she would go up to see him. There, as we read in 1 Samuel chapter 24, she took him there when he was very young. And I don't think that we could ever take our children to church too young. Brooks, my oldest son, he was born on a Friday. He got out of the hospital the following Friday or sometime that following week and was in church that Sunday morning. And all of our life, he was in church, and the girls were about the same way. But I believe the importance of getting them in church. But let's also think about those children whose parents do not carry them to church. If you can't get the parents to church, the children need to come anyway, right? There are some children who have never been invited to be a part of the family of God. And moms, listen to me. Ladies, listen to me. You may not have given birth to that child, but who knows that God has put that child in your path where you can have an impact on that child's life in leading them to the Lord and in a lifetime of service for the Lord. Number 4, the next thing, she recognized God's ownership of the child. He was God's. 1 Samuel 1:28. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is lent to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord there. I'm going to tell you the thought that just came into my mind. There are a lot of children today whose moms gave them to God, but they are living away from God today. And it may be some of you that are listening. Your mom gave you to the Lord. They dedicated you, or in some way in her heart, in her prayers, she gave you to the Lord, brought you to church, led you to church to come to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And for some reason you fail away because you got discouraged or you got distracted or something of that sort. Let me tell you, the prayers of your mom, even though she may not be living now, and perhaps she is, but if she is not living now, those prayers are still going on. I believe that the prayers my mom and my grandmother prayed for me years ago, and mom died 7 years ago, but the prayers that they prayed for me years ago, I believe are still, I believe they're still having an impact on my life today. So understand, those children are God. Give them to God. And they may not even be yours. Okay? They may not even be your children. You may not have given birth to them. But give them to God. And you do that on your knees. I mean, you don't snatch children and run and take them to church. But give them to God on your knees. Hey, every time you get out to pray, it may be nieces. It may be nephews. It may be children. It may be your grandchildren. It may be the neighbor's children. Just give that child to God. I believe we can have an impact on this society and the next society to come, the next generation to come, by praying sincerely before God for those children. The next thing, she rejoiced over the arrangement with God. My mom did not tell me that you're going to preach, or you're going to have to preach, or you're going to have to be a preacher. It wasn't like mom said, your dad's a preacher, so you're going to have to be a preacher. Mom didn't do that. There are 5 children in our family, and she didn't do that to us. But she recognized the call of God and the plan that God was having and how he was laying out that plan in our life. And she rejoiced over that with us and prayed for us as God led us. 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 1, Hannah prayed and said, my heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. She was a woman of joy, a woman of rejoicing. She was a woman who was so excited because God had given her the opportunity to bring a child into this world and give him to God. You go back and read her story before she had the child and how she prayed for the child, and now she's given it back to God. And watching what God was doing through through Samuel's life in the presence of Eli, she rejoiced at what God was doing. When I was when Mom was living in my early ministry years, I remember calling my mom many times about the service I was about to preach in or something. And I remember one Sunday, I was pastoring a church, and I was just struggling on a Sunday morning. And I called my mom, and I said, Mom, and I believe when I called her, she was already at the church, because I believe she answered the phone at the church. But I said, Mom, I just need you to pray for me. And my dad told me later that Mom was not even in their service that Sunday morning, because she spent the entire time in a room praying for me 125 miles away. That made an impact on my life. Let me tell you something. You may not be able to give the children the wealth of this world. You may not be able to give them everything that they ask for, everything that they want, or everything all the other kids have. But if you will pray for them and be that source of strength through prayer for them, you will make a lasting impact on them, something that they will never forget. Let me tell you, there's some of you moms that have prayed for your children years and years and years and years. Don't for one moment think that God has not heard your prayers. Don't for 1 minute think that God has not heard your prayers. God has heard every prayer. Listen, I saw something on Facebook or somewhere, I forgot where it was, that someone was in heaven with the Lord counting Mama's tears, or counting our tears as we prayed. I forget exactly how it was. All of those tears that you pray for your child or you weep for your child, they're bottled up in heaven, I believe. All of those prayers are before God continually. And God has not ignored them, and God has not forgotten them. Those children have been given to God, and keep the prayer bells ringing, because one day God is going to shake them into their senses, and who knows, it may be a pandemic that helps to do that. Wouldn't that be revival? Wouldn't that be awesome? If all of the prayers that we've prayed is putting God to the place where He's going to use this pandemic to bring about the revival that we prayed for, that we've longed for. Wouldn't that be awesome? Some of the child's most sacred memories of their mother, and I'm going to hit on 2 or 3 of these real quick. Thinking of the mother as one who cared for our happiness in life, one who really cared for us, our welfare, our happiness. Mom wants the kids to be happy, because when the kids are happy, Mom is happy. And when Mom is happy, everybody's happy, right? And Mom's not happy if the kids are not happy. If the child is troubled, Mom's troubled too. Another one is Mom was one who really cared for our soul. Think about it. Mom's one who really cared for our soul. Even when we didn't care for our soul, our moms really cared for our soul. Mom was one whose embrace would give us the greatest comfort. I love my dad. I love hugging my dad's neck. I love my dad hugging my neck. But I'm going to tell you, there's something about a mom's hug. I don't suppose that through my adult life, that as long as Mom was living, I don't think there was ever a time that I was around Mom that I didn't hug her neck and kiss her on the cheek, and she would kiss me on the cheek. And I'm not ashamed of it. And I'd give everything I had now to get another one of those. You know what I mean? But that was just Mom. She would give me the greatest comfort. I remember losing Brooks, and I remember Mom sitting on the sofa with me, just talking with me for hours. In days and weeks that followed, Mom was one that gave me the greatest comfort. She was the most, or moms are the most unselfish people in the world, right? Moms are the most unselfish people. They would give their child a shirt off their back. They would take food from their own plate and give it to their child. That was my mom. That was my mom. The best doctor in times of sickness. My goodness, Mom always had a home remedy. Mom always had an idea. But I'm going to tell you what Mom had more than anything. She had a direct line to God. And sometimes she may not have everything in the house that would make home remedies work, but Mom knew how to pray. And in the drop of your hat, Mom would pray. And that was, to me, the best source of help during my time of sickness. She's the queen of the kitchen. And some of you who have married, some of you girls who have married guys whose mom could cook have already understood the difficulty of trying to make him happy with your own cooking. My mom could cook. Carol can cook anything and does an excellent job at all of it. Mom could cook. Oh man. There was a time that my mom had these set dishes that she would cook, and my children would call them like the number one or the number two or the number three. So number one was like red beans and rice. Number two, I don't know, pot roast or something. I forget what they all were. Lauren and Cherie could probably help me with those. But Mom was such a good cook, and everybody loved going to Mom's and eating. And I remember my grandmother. Grandmother could make the best fried chicken. Goodness. And she made chocolate cakes, and my cousins and my siblings will know what I'm talking about, but Grandmother Morris would make a chocolate cake. And you know how firm Hershey's chocolate bars are? Grandma's icing was like that. When you would cut the cake, it would be like cracking, breaking the icing. The chocolate was so thick and so hard. Oh my, those were the days. The power of a mother's love. You can never underestimate this. The world famous painter Benjamin West said, "Mother's kiss made me an artist." I thought that was neat. Mother's kiss made me an artist. Saint Augustine said, "Mother's prayers made me a saint." Think about that. Mother's prayers made me a saint. I read this and I thought I would share it with you. Americans may say, "Give us more Abraham Lincolns." I'm not talking about the currency, but give us more Abraham Lincolns, men like Abraham Lincoln. But someone has said, rather we should say, "Give us more godly women." For Abraham Lincoln said, "All I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother." That says a lot. Lord, give us more godly women. I don't know, you may feel like today that you haven't been so godly. But I'm going to tell you, what I love about Jesus Christ is that he takes what we can bring to him, and no matter how much baggage or how much weight or how bad it may have been, he takes all of that and redeems it, redeems you, and he makes you whiter than snow and makes you like an angel. And you can change now, and you can have a change on the lives of others. That's one thing I want you to know. Women, don't ever let anyone put you down because you are a woman, because you're a female. I know there are people who would make you think, there are men who would make you think that you are less than because you are a woman. You are God's creation. In the new humanity that Christ brought about, you are no second-class gender. You are God's creation. You are precious in God's eyes. And God can use you in ways that you can't imagine if you just yield yourself to Him. If you just say those prayers to Him, as we've talked about today, for those children, for your companion, for those children in your life. They may be your children or they may not be. God can use those prayers that you pray. He will hear you. I just want to give a shout out this morning to all the mothers. I want to say Happy Mother's Day. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for everything you're going to do for not only your children, but all of the children. And this morning, I want to honor some mothers that also is not here with us, but we do a big push for Children's Cup, and we've done this. This past week, we were able to send $1,500 to Children's Cup for them to directly bless the children of Belize and the families in Belize. And there's more on the way. But there is a mother that helps to take care of that. And we talk about Dan Olerking all the time, and he's a good friend of mine. I love him to death. But Vicky, his wife, does an awesome job in helping with Children's Cup as well, even while she's fighting the battle with cancer. Vicky is a mother that we want to honor with Children's Cup. Julie is in Belize City, started a ministry years ago, helping minister to the children, and she called it Water Walkers. We were there a couple of times last year. And the first time we were there in March of last year, I asked Julie, I said, why the name Water Walkers? And she said, because we have to walk on water. And it all clicked with me of what she was talking about. But for her to be able to take care of those children, it was taking the faith of one walking on the water. And I thought that was very cool. Julie, Indira, and Karen. Indira right there working in that Care Point there at Albert Street, Water Walkers. I want to honor you. Karen Kane was a woman in Belize that I sat and talked with who had suffered as a mom and just had issues, but God had touched her, and she would go every day to that Care Point and sit and talk to those little children while they sat and ate, and that blessed my heart. But not only them, up in Orange Walk, Lupita, and those of you who were with us, you know Lupita. Lupita had two sons that lost their lives, that were killed, murdered, and Lupita was offering her property there for us to be able to use for a temporary care point to feed these children. And when we were there in November, it was on Lupita's property that we had the Christmas party in Orange Walk. And then there at that care point, Maria and Anna and those ladies, those mothers, God has given us such a love and such a passion for the children of Belize and of Honduras as well. But these ladies are giving their all to take care of those children. We've got ladies in our congregation who you may have no children, but the impact you're making on those children and on their lives is not going unnoticed. We see it, but God sees it. And don't you for one moment think that God is not going to honor your prayers, but at the same time bless you in a way like you've never been blessed. You get the privilege of praying and talking to God on a regular basis, but also get the blessing of being with Him, but also seeing your prayers answered and seeing those children touched. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. To all of you ladies, I hope you have a great day. Men, if you're listening, do your best to make sure that those women in your life are treated like queens today. It's an honor to be influenced by godly women. Ladies, we just want you to know how much we appreciate you. Guys, your day will come, but today it's Mother's Day. I want us to pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, I want to thank you this morning for creating women, mothers, aunts, grandmothers, Sunday school teachers, prayer warriors, school teachers, caretakers that have watched over us and cared for us and prayed for us throughout our life. Lord, I know you work through the heart of a mom, through the heart of a godly woman. I know you work through them. I'm asking you today to bless them. I'm asking you to touch them. Pour your Spirit out upon their lives. Meet their need. God, don't let a mother listening today go through her struggles alone. Be there with her. Speak peace to her heart. And Father, those mothers who have lost children or whose children have died and gone on to meet you, I pray this morning for a special comfort in their life, for a special peace, Lord, that you said would pass all understanding, a peace that the world cannot even understand. Give them that peace today. And Lord, those mothers whose children have strayed from you, and those mothers have prayed day in and day out, or grandmothers or aunts, those prayers that have been prayed, Lord, I'm asking you today to honor those and bring those children home. Lord, work in the lives of these moms today as we honor them. Give them a special strength, a special blessing today. We thank you for this in Jesus' name. Mercy. We love you all. None of you, I think, in the church knew my mom. But I hope that somehow today you've gotten to know a little more about her. I had the best. And I know you did too. So, honor the women today that have had a godly impact in your life. All right? Ladies, I hope you have a great day. Praying for you. If they don't treat you right, if those guys don't treat you right, let me know. We'll put them on the prayer list as well. All right? Love you guys. Take care. Hope you have a great, or girls too, hope you have a great day. And we will see you back here soon. God bless.